All right. So yeah, to begin introductions, my name is Laura Ham. I'm the co-owner of Traverse Journeys that's hosting this event for you all today. And I'll tell you a little bit about Traverse in a minute, but I'm from the States. I grew up in the Midwest. I lived in Austin for a number of years. And at the moment, I'm living in Ireland. So if you hear me say things like this evening, that's because it's evening time for me over here. And we also have another Laura joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself, Laura?
Yeah, my name is Laura McAfoose. I grew up in the States. I moved to Chile shortly after I finished university to teach English in a local school. I met a Chilean man that was a guide in Torres del Paine in Patagonia in the southern part of Chile, and we started a travel business down in southern Chile. And I lived there from 2007 until just recently, last year, 2019. And we have two kids, and I brought them back to the States to put them in school. And we keep traveling through Chile. It's a good place to visit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or to live. If you want to move down there, it's a good place to move.
Yeah, you put in a good 13 years, so it must be all right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, just to tell you kind of a little bit about tonight's event and how that'll go, so you know what to expect. We're going to talk about, some interesting tidbits about Chile, the geography, climate, culture, kind of give you, some insight into these different aspects of the country. And then we'll talk about some of the destinations in Chile, and we'll kind of walk you through what we put together as our itinerary in Chile, because we kind of think of those as like some of the best highlights. So you'll get to kind of see what those are like. We've got lots of great photos to show you. And then, towards the end of the event, we'll open it up to Q&A. So you can feel free to like save your questions till the end if you want to, ask anything that we haven't covered. You can always, like I said, type into the chat box if you have questions throughout the event and want to or add something while we're talking. And we're hoping to go about an hour. That's the goal. And yeah, that's the event for tonight. So let's get started, shall we? So as you know, we just already introduced ourselves. So my name is Laura, like I said, and Traverse Journeys, let me just tell you a little bit about who we are. So we're a travel company that specializes in small group and self-guided or custom trips to a couple dozen international destinations. We focus our motto on people, planet, and purpose. Which means that we have a very sort of intentional, value-based model. When it comes to the people aspect, we really aim to do like culturally immersive experiences, people-to-people experiences, and really kind of have our guests experience the country and the culture on a local level. And of course, planet, when we're visiting all these incredible places like Patagonia and Chile, we do so with like sustainable, responsible travel practices at the forefront, and make our decisions about accommodation or other decisions in our itinerary to kind of prioritize responsible, sustainable travel. And purpose, for us, that can mean a few things. Essentially, it's just taking the idea of travel and creating purpose with it, like meaning and intent and, kind of a transformative experience beyond just like seeing sights and scratching things off the list. So we try to give you a more purposeful experience. One of the ways that we do that is we actually partner with the NGO in each country that we travel to, and we donate a portion of the sales to that NGO, and you get to meet with them and kind of learn a little bit about what they do. So that's a little bit about Traverse Journeys, and now let's dive into Chile. Laura, you want to start us off?
Oh, sure. So that's Chile that you can see there, long and thin. It's actually as long as the United States is wide. It's not that populated at 18 million people. yeah, I like during the pandemic, I've been actually comparing it to Texas because the numbers are quite comparable for the entire country of Chile. It feels like it's about the same as the entire state of Texas. The people there speak Spanish. We use the Chilean peso. It's pretty stable, strong currency. The country is divided into 16 regions. They're very easily named. They're normally just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down the country. And then the capital there is pretty much smack dab in the middle. It's Santiago.
Right in there, yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay, and moving on.
Yep, it's very thin. The you can like from where I was living in Puerto Natales to Argentina is just like a 20-minute drive. From Santiago to the border is no more than an hour, but it kind of takes long because the mountains, the Andes Mountains, actually create the border between Argentina and Chile. So most of the country, the mountains are very marked. When you get down to Patagonia, they're not so, there's still mountains, but there's lots of pampa, so it's not as clear of a line. But so to get to Mendoza across the border into Argentina, just from Santiago, takes a little bit longer because you have to drive all these switchbacks. The coast of Chile is very important part of Chile. It's huge. The volcanoes there along the mountains. There's lots of volcanoes in the Lakes District and that area. The closest country to Antarctica. Yeah, we actually Argentina and Chile actually fight about who's the closest to Antarctica in a lovingly way. All the time. So Chile, Punta Arenas is actually the closest city on the South American continent, and Ushuaia in Argentina is actually on an island, and therefore it's not on the continent, so Chile wins.
We'll go with that.
And the driest place on earth is the Atacama Desert, which is in the northern part of Chile. Because the country is so long, though the climate varies a lot. You can see here, this is kind of just like the country, the top of the country, the Atacama Desert, and then it goes the middle of the country there where it's green on the chart is the middle, and it's very like you produce produces lots of vegetables and wines and very heavy agricultural area. And then the southern part of Chile is Pampas. It's like more potato, more like Ireland, I would guess. Potatoes and lamb and not so lush. But luckily it's all, well, most of the south anyways gets lots of rain from having the ocean right there. It's like the California coast. So the water is picked up off the ocean, dumped on the land, and then it moves over to Argentina and it's dry on the other side of the mountains.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Here's a few pictures just to give people kind of an idea of the variety. This is in the north in the Atacama Desert. And then in the middle of Chile, in central Chile, you can see the kind of green, lush, agricultural, kind of zone. And then in the south in Patagonia, where you have glaciers and ice-capped mountains and all that good stuff. So moving on, a little snapshot of the history.
Yep. So the Incas came down to about Santiago, and then the Mapuches were from Santiago down to the Lakes District, and then down in Patagonia there were the Coescar. The Spanish people came over and colonized the country in the mid 1600s, and in 1818 Chile declared independence from Spain. Then in the 70s there was the Chilean coup d'etat, I don't know if you guys would have heard of that, but there was a whole thing with Pinochet and there was a lot of civil unrest in the 70s in the country. In 1988, they kind of settled everything out. Everything became a bit more stable, and the country turned over to be a democracy, and it's a really nice place to live now. It's stable, and the economy is driven by markets, and there's no more dictators or anything like that. It's nice.
Hello.
Yeah, definitely. It's very
Can you hear me?
Oh, what? Hello? Is someone speaking?
Yeah. This is my name is Pablo Baudini. I just wanted to introduce myself. The only reason I joined this is because I'm Chilean myself. So I wanted to make myself available in case you guys had any questions. I just wanted to add a little bit about the history. I did live the dictatorship myself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happened in that dictatorship is that Pinochet, the dictator, imposed a new economy system, and basically helping a lot of the small business to be able to show the products to the world, if you will. So we started a whole new economy that has boomed basically since the 1988 or whatever, non-stopping. So basically the governments, whether there's left or right these days, all they do is just oil the machine of the economy. Yeah. And that's why, we've become very successful from a financial perspective. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a gem in South America at this point, for sure. So we will, of course, talk a little bit about the COVID situation in Chile, because I'm sure a lot of people are curious to know, what the story is like down there, and how it's all unfolding or has unfolded. Do you want to kind of start things off, Laura, and I'll jump in if there's anything?
Sure. I didn't look up the total cases as of today, but the country has had quite a bit of COVID. At the beginning of the pandemic, they were pretty high on the charts, but since have figured out how to manage the cases in the country, and the case count has gone down. So it's pretty much under control as much as it can be, I would say. Because Chile is so centralized, lots of most everything happens in the capital, and then the rural areas are spread out. The main the largest places that have been affected has mostly been Santiago. However, the regions in the country, like right now, Magallanes is being hit really hard by the pandemic. But if you look at the actual numbers, it's not as bad the number is low, but the effect is high because there's fewer people living there, and there's less hospital resources and things like that. So in Puerto Natales, the city that I lived in, the cases are like 40 a day, but that's a big deal when you only have 3 ICU beds. So in the whole city. So there's lots of people being, the country has closed down and implemented lots of quarantines in order to manage the COVID cases passing from one city to another. In between regions also, they've set up, there's sanitary controls. So basically, if you're going to move, let's say from region 1 to region 5, you have to have a very good reason and request a police permit. So you have to say, I got fired from my job and I have to go move in with my mother. And you show them the piece of paper that is, the paper showing that you got fired, and to the police, and then they give you a permit to move. They're giving permits to go to the grocery store. You can only go out twice a week for a few hours. But it's also depending on how the virus is spreading in that city. So Santiago spent the last few months with no restrictions, that people could move around freely because they had reined in the control of the virus, but just recently, and I'm guessing as a preventative measure also before the holidays, they're starting to lock everything back down because they don't want the case count to go up again. So now you can't go out on the weekends. They've been implementing curfews, so you can't go out at night, different things like that in order to manage the virus. The tourism, I actually will put a link that I just got today, Chile.travel, that has all the requirements for traveling into the country. It's in English. It's a great resource that shows the requirements, because they are allowing tourists in, but you have to have, looks like you have to have a pretty good health insurance plan. You have to have a negative PCR test, and I think there was, you have to sign a sworn statement, and then you have to respect the rules of the country. So if you're going from a place that's on complete quarantine, you have to complete quarantine, even though you're a tourist. But if you go to a place with no quarantine, then you can move freely around as long as you have that negative PCR test.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll keep that site updated too as things change. Yeah, the current case count, it looks like, is around 570,000. And as you said, it's like, it's quite level for the last couple of months. Like it's been very, there hasn't been like the up and down kind of spikes and things like that. I remember you saying also that the government was really good in terms of like taking care of people with the lockdown.
So Pablo might disagree with me, but unlike the States, they've been giving, it's actually controversial. So the Chileans will say that they're not doing enough, but that anybody that had a job contract that's been laid off, the government's been paying them about 50% of their salary if the employer applied for the employees to receive that. They've been giving out different bonuses. They've been letting people take money from their Social Security account. Well, it's not Social Security, but it's their retirement, the government retirement. They've been giving 10% of retirement back to people. They've done it now twice. And I was talking to my mother-in-law last night and found out that the government just mailed a box of food to every person. I was like, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, and they're trying to make sure people are still eating and safe. They've shut down schools, which is different than here, which is made some people.
Is there anything in particular they're doing in the airports? It's a question from the chat here. I'm assuming it's probably
yeah, masks. Everybody has to wear masks. Yeah, hand sanitizer everywhere. Yeah, it's not. So I've had quite a few. My husband traveled back and forth during the pandemic, and the domestic US flight, he was like appalled that in the airport not everybody had masks on. But this was months back, so maybe now the airports are getting more strict. But in Chile, there's no argument about the whole mask thing. So they're just wearing masks in the airports and in the places.
So there's a lot of like social compliance with the restrictions.
I don't know, because they're also like breaking curfew. I know they're breaking curfew in quarantine.
Well, what you have to understand, as well, is that there's people with much less resources, than in the States. So because of that reason, I mean, how do you prevent basically people being so close when they're buying food in the fairs, especially open fairs? You know, so that's one of the issues, even though they have masks and all, but the closeness factor, cannot really, you cannot enforce it, because, there's a lot of poor people that go around and they have to buy food, and
they have to ride the metro. The public transportation in Santiago is a very common thing. I would say most people take public transportation, and so that you can't get away from everybody else. But I think they are complying with the mask wearing.
Yeah, excellent. So we're all kind of hoping for, as most of the world is, that maybe next year this time, or before then, maybe tourism will be back. Patagonia is kind of, the season starts in November through April, so next November would be would be a good time to hope for
Yeah, well, that's
visiting.
what we're hoping on.
Yeah, and we'll just kind of keep going, and we've got a lot of ground to cover and information to impart and everything. So maybe we can just like save questions till the end, unless so you can see if we maybe answered before we get to that. So moving along, Chilean people. It's quite a melting pot. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, Laura?
Yeah, let me pull the notes back up. The Chilean people. So, oh, it disappeared. Sorry. Here they are.
We're just wonderful.
They are. I married one. They are great. I have two little ones. They're really family oriented. We were talking about this, me and Laura, the other day. And even people that aren't their family are their family. I was telling Laura about how my husband, his last name is very unique. His grandfather was one of like the settlers of the town, and he had 16 siblings. And they so he has cousins that he's never met before. Not cousins, they're like third cousins or fourth cousins. And he'll run into somebody with his last name, and they're instantly family. Like, oh, I haven't seen you never. It's really nice. They're very warm and very friendly. They always kiss on the cheek, and you have to say hi. And this drives me crazy as an American, but people just show up at your door like, I'm over to have a cup of tea, let me in.
Well, that kind of leads us into the culture and values of community.
Yeah. And you can't tell them no. You always have to have tea and once. They're always, it's very friendly and caring.
Yeah, definitely a very community vibe there.
Yeah. This part, modern and tradition. So I mentioned this a little bit before. So because Chile is so centralized around Santiago, so the picture on the left is very obviously Santiago. The picture on the right could be lots of different places. So the big high rises, everything that looks really big and fancy is normally in the center part of the country, and then as you spread out the length, it is rural. And then there's one highway that runs from north to south, the Cinco, and it will have some big cities on it. The coast will have big cities on it from where the boats would stop. But then these more rural looking towns will be off into the, like away from that. If you need any like shopping or anything, you have to order. Like I had a car break and I needed a car part, you have to order it from Santiago. So the tradition of like the small town feel with the old habits are all in the smaller towns, and then the big city, it just feels like anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's quite a like metropolis. It's a very big juxtaposition between the city and the countryside, for sure. There's a couple indigenous groups in Chile, one down in, well, a few in Patagonia and then in central Chile. Do you want to just touch on those briefly?
Yeah, I talked to my husband about this a long time last night because Laura actually asked me about the Mapuches, which I don't know that much about them, so I asked. They are the bigger, more like well-known group. They're around the Lakes District. In Patagonia, there's the Coescar people that are still there, and Laura, that's who you guys are maybe do something.
It's up in the air, but we're meeting with the Legacy Fund. Yeah.
Yeah, they work some with the Coescar people, and I was talking about, so the Mapuches are more feisty. I was talking about how the Spanish settlement came in and the Mapuche people fought back and didn't want to be taken over by the Spanish people, where the Coescar people were more friendly, or they hid on islands And so the Coasca people were not eliminated, but there's not like a independent place for them. They're mixed in, where the Mapuche people are like, this is them. They're very much more identified. They still maintain a lot of their culture very boldly, you could say.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And of course, all of the festivals and celebrations and holidays.
Yeah, there's one every week in Chile. At least they like to celebrate a lot. It goes with the whole thing we were talking about, the people. They like to be together and drink and eat and have festivities, and there's lots and lots of holidays. The biggest one I would say is in 18, the 18th of September. It's the Chilean Independence Day, and they normally take a whole week off of work. I would make it like equal to our Thanksgiving, except for it's their Independence Day. So it's the same like celebration of we love our country as the 4th of July, or I don't know what it is in Canada. But it's a very festive day for the country, but at the same time it has that like people travel from all over to be with their family, to eat, and you cook, you have like this huge barbecue, and it's right at the beginning of spring, so it's like great weather. It's a really big
Sounds like a good time to visit and see.
Yeah, it is actually. It's fun.
But yeah, I guess, to your point about all the holidays, it's probably good for any travelers to, look up, their travel dates and see, what might be going on. If there's stuff you want to join or stuff you want to, just make sure you're aware of.
Yeah. Whenever I would travel to Santiago from Puerto Natales to do some sort of legal errand, because that's the only place you can do lots of those things, I would always not look at the calendar, never look at the calendar, and get there during a holiday and then be like, no. So
yeah, you gotta
make sure you look
accordingly. Okay, great. Let's go on to a little virtual trip around Chile. So I'll kind of talk you through a little bit in terms of what we do with our itinerary, and you can take that as you will in terms of like, just steal some tips for creating your own itinerary, or, obviously join us in 2021 or 2022. So here we kind of have a little, I wanted to give you like a glimpse just to see like how far. So we start off, you fly into Santiago, and then we spend the night in Santiago and go into the central wine valley, or the Valle de Casablanca, and visit a winery and get a tour of the vineyard, and then head to Valparaiso on the coast, which is kind of right there, not too far from Santiago, and we spend a couple nights there. And then we get on a domestic flight and fly down to Puerto Natales. And I put both these maps here just so you can kind of get the scope of where we go, and how far down Patagonia is. So that kind of gives you the map overview. If you are interested in our trips, just a little breakdown of kind of what's included. We have 3 to 4 star boutique accommodations, all of your in-country transportation, including a domestic flight on this particular itinerary. We use local guides throughout the experiences. Of course, like I mentioned before, trying to provide those people-to-people immersive cultural experiences. We always give you a daily breakfast and include other lunches and dinners scattered into the itinerary. We meet with our community partner, of course, the NGO that we donate a portion of the sales to, and we keep our groups small, 12 people max, I think, for this trip. So when you start off in Patagonia, or in Chile, and you fly into Santiago, everybody in our itinerary gets these inclusions. One thing that's unique about our itinerary, I guess, is that when we go down to Patagonia, the group that we have splits into 2. So we have one group that does a hiking trek, the W Trek in Patagonia, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the other group that does that stays overnight in Puerto Natales for a couple nights, and then one night in the national park, and does other excursions. So if you're not quite into the multi-day hiking and camping, but you want to, get the most out of Patagonia, you can do the non-hiking version. And maybe your friend who's all avid, active hiker enthusiast can do the hiking, but you'd be together at the beginning and the end of the trip. So just a little way to kind of have something for everybody, I guess. So you can see that things that we all do together there. The non-hiking itinerary, like I said, you have 3 more nights in boutique hotels. You do an estancia tour to
La
these.
Peninsula?
What's that? Go ahead.
La Peninsula, and you also go to Estancia
Consuelo.
Yeah, I was like, I just left my head.
Yeah, and there's a boat trip at the end of the world, Ultima Esperanza, where you get to get up close with a couple of glaciers like you see in the picture there. And you also do get a full day private guided tour of the park of Torres del Paine National Park, where you kind of go in a vehicle and get to see some of the highlights. The hiking itinerary, of course, is a 4-day trek. 3 nights. So you're hiking along, if you want to look it up, it's the W Trail in Torres del Paine National Park. And it's an incredible way to see, some of the best highlights, the lookouts, the viewpoints, the lakes, the mountains, rivers. You got it all. Every day you're pretty much just, going from one gorgeous vista to another. And you have a guide with you when you're hiking and your dinners as well. So we'll just kind of go day by day through like what an itinerary might look like when you visit Chile. So most of you would obviously always arrive into Santiago, and potentially spend a night or maybe a couple nights there. I kind of tried to show, you can see it's quite a modern city, very like big metropolis, but then there's also kind of these colonial architecture and palm trees and things like that you see there. Did you want to add anything about Santiago, Laura? You know it much better.
Yeah, it's divided. I don't know how to describe it. Like New York City. So New York City has different parts within New York City. So Santiago is the same way. It's a big city. And so like the newer parts of town, like that big tall tower is actually a mall. Wow. And then on top of the mall is office buildings, but it's a really cool mall. And the other buildings around there, there'll be apartments and office buildings. It's really densely populated. So the businesses are mixed in with the people. And then the metro runs underneath, and it's got, I think, like 5 or 6 lines. But so you'll find the newer buildings like that, and then you'll go to like the old section of town, like the downtown, the original downtown, and you'll see the building like in the other picture. It's really neat to have the 2 different pieces, and what's really nice is all really well connected. Like if you're when you arrive, after you arrive, you want to just go wander around, it's safe enough to just go explore. I wouldn't like take a big giant purse, but you won't get hurt. You might get something pickpocketed.
Yeah, you gotta be mindful.
Just go wander around and get lost, and hopefully you can find your way back. It's fun. It's not dangerous. It's a good place.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's lots of history there, museums. Mm-hmm. There's some really like vibrant neighborhoods, like kind of artsy, cultural neighborhoods.
Tons of bars and cafes just because of that whole community thing. So they get off work and they go have a coffee. Yeah, it's nice.
It's a great like foodie city as well. Mm-hmm. There's lots of great restaurants. We'll go for dinner together when we arrive that first evening in Santiago. So yeah, and then from Santiago, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump into Valle de Casablanca, which is one of the, very sort of famous wine growing areas or regions in Chile. It's just probably less than an hour west.
Yeah.
Santiago. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Laura?
I don't know what to say really. The valleys are just there, just outside of Santiago. It's really close, and there's tons of them. So this is the one that Laura has picked with us, and it's a nice a nice place to visit.
Yeah, we'll definitely, we get to do a full tour of the winery and the vineyard and kind of see how it's all the behind the scenes process. And then you get a tasting, of course. No visit to a winery would be complete without a tasting.
Yeah.
So you get a little, nice glimpse into the wine, kind of growing and culture within Chile, which is huge. It's a very big producer of wine globally. And then in the afternoon, we keep on going west until we get to the coast. Again, like less than an hour probably from the vineyard to Valparaiso. And if you haven't heard of Valparaiso before, you are in for a treat. It is an incredibly unique town, sort of it's on the coast. You can see kind of a little layout of the city. There's lots of colorful buildings, but what's even more interesting is it's just filled with art. Like the streets of Valparaiso, especially in certain neighborhoods, are just chock-a-block full of like mural after mural after mural.
Graffiti.
So
It's
many
fun to
artists
just walk around.
contributed over the years. There's so much unique artwork, and it's just like such a treat to wander around.
With your camera.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, take about a zillion pictures probably. So the first day when we arrived to Valparaiso, we kind of settle into our boutique hotel, and then you'd go on like a walking tour of the city with your guide. So you'll get some of the insight into the town, and some of the highlights of the artwork. And you'll get the lay of the land and kind of know where you are and where things are. So then when you want to go off and wander independently, you have the ability to do so. So we spend 2 nights in Valparaiso, actually. So the next day, there's more time for you to soak things up. There's lots to do. You can do like a little day trip to Vina del Mar. Is that
Vina del Mar? Yeah.
The
winery at the sea. Is what Vina is, the winery.
Yeah. Another little town just up the coast, which is a really nice, or you could just, easily just spend hours and hours wandering around Valparaiso.
They're also connected by a metro, which makes them really easy to jump between the two of them.
Yeah, that's right. And then in the afternoon, we'll gather up together after you've had the day to kind of do what you like, and we'll do a cooking class, which starts with visiting the local market. So you can kind of go all the way from the beginning where you're picking, and seeing the ingredients at the market, and then back to where you'll prepare appetizers and main dishes and desserts, and of course, eat it all up. And pisco sours as well.
Yeah, those are yummy. Homemade ones are so good.
So let's see, there's a question about speaking English. I think, in Chile, there's definitely, plenty of people who don't speak English, but I think, within the people that you run into, like at the hotels or restaurants or within the tourism industry, people speak English.
Yeah, they're taught English in schools first grade, I think, through 12th. And then the public schools there aren't that, they're okay, but they're not that great in most of the country. So lots of people go to private schools, and lots of them will have better English education than others. So my nieces are 10 and 12, and they've already had, 8 years of English. They can't speak whole sentences, but they understand me if I say like, I need to go to the bathroom. They know what that means. So you won't have problems.
That's definitely a fair point. So the next morning, we get up early, head to the airport, and take our domestic flight all the way down to Puerto Natales, which is, as you can see, a very, very cute little village at the sort of, base or foots or, kind of entranceway into Patagonia. So we arrived there and check into our little hotel there. Puerto Natales you can fly direct to Puerto Natales from Santiago. And that's kind of your closest jumping off point into Torres del Paine National Park. Some people fly into Punta Arenas, which is a couple hours away, but there's like usually more flights, and it's a busier, bigger airport. So if you fly into Punta Arenas, then it's, a couple hours on a bus or, shuttle to get to Puerto Natales. And that's where you lived, right, Laura? So you can
Yeah, I lived in Puerto Natales the whole time I was there. The flight to Natales are new. They've been doing it like 3 years now. The airport only has 2 terminals. They don't have like a I don't know what it's called, but that thing that they hook up to the airplane, it's not
Oh
like
yeah,
a
like the gangway type thing.
yeah, they don't have that. You have to get off the stairs and walk on the tarmac into the airport. It feels like very
Those airports, yeah.
1940s or something. I don't know. It's cool. The Punta Arenas is a much bigger city. Natales is like 30,000 people roughly, and Punta Arenas is around 100. Punta Arenas is a very old city, and so everything's a little more developed there because it's quite a bit older. Yeah, no, Natales is a really nice town. It's full of like people from everywhere, which makes it very easy for a foreigner to live there. I think that's one of the reasons why I survived so long is because there's people from the States. There's a lot of people from the States that live there, and there's people from Europe, and it's a real nice melting pot of all of those different cultures. Tourism started there in the late 70s, the 80s, when the owners of like North Face and Patagonia came down to go climbing before they were billionaires. They traveled down in a bus, or millionaires. I don't know how rich they are, but and so tourism got built as, I think, tourism in Natales got built with the climbing industry, with those very
rugged mountaineers.
but those guys went and climbed, and then they brought back stories to all their friends, and then they got really rich, and then they spread the word about Patagonia to everybody. But
and now we all know that Patagonia is a must see.
Yeah, and it really is. It's a cool place, and it's got a lot of that really relaxed outdoorsy vibe, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not when you're surrounded by such beautiful nature all the time?
Yeah, and the other thing that's really cool about it, Torres del Paine is a really wonderful place, and it's great for tourism. But there's so much more like than just there. So the locals will just like go out anywhere, and lots of the land is private. So there'll be like estancias. Estancia is like a ranch. It's a farmland, but normally not with produce, but instead with animals. There's lots of cattle and tons of sheep. And so if you know the owner of that estancia, you can just go say, hey, Uncle so-and-so, can I walk around on your land? Just take off exploring. So it's still
definitely easy to spend a good amount of time there. Never run out of things to do. But we go straight into the hikers go straight into the park the next day, into Torres del Paine. So, it's all right looking, I guess, if you like that sort of thing. You can kind of see the trademark, mountains there with the granite and the different colored kind of rock in the formations there. So this is where we split into 2 groups. So, if you're thinking about, joining us or going on your own, you can kind of see how, what it could look like if you're an avid hiker or if you're not so much. So the hiking
everybody will get to see that picture on the last slide. You see no matter what.
Yeah, there's definitely a good amount of things that you'll see regardless. So that's good news, even if you're not a active hiker. But the active hikers do the first day get to go up to this incredible spot, which is what the park is named for, the towers, Torres del Paine. So you hike for about, 6 hours return to get there and back from the camp?
No, it's 8. It's 4 hours up and then 4 hours back down.
Yeah, depending on your pace, I guess, a little bit. And you don't have to bring your large pack with you because you leave that at your campground. So you can just take a day pack and hike on up and spend some time, communing with the towers there. That's like a glacial lake there, essentially, right? Like a small, it makes it just absolutely stunning.
And that moraine there, all those rocks are from the glacier that that left.
Yeah.
That used to be.
Yeah, it's a great way to start things off, definitely. The non-hikers, though, also have quite a treat because they will take a trip out to one of the most incredible estancias in the region, Estancia La Peninsula, which you can see some photographs there. So you take a boat to get there from Puerto Natales. And once you're there, you can kind of, you can choose to partake in like horseback riding or do some hiking on the private trails. And everybody gets, big, incredible, like Patagonian barbecue that they prepare for you. And then there's like sheep shearing demonstrations, and they do like, you get to meet the sheep dogs. It's a full day, lots to do. Yeah. Is there anything else I'm missing?
No. This is what I was talking about earlier, though. So this estancia is still a working estancia. They just brought tourism into it, like I think maybe 3 years ago now. So the family that owns this estancia, their main like purpose in business is sheep and cow raising, and they brought the tourism in, so you actually get to do what I was saying, which is like call your uncle and say, hey, can I go see your estancia? And then you go out and he shows around. It's and the same thing, I think you get to go on a hike, though, like if you want to, obviously you don't have to, wander you around and let you see the different places that aren't so populated, which is really nice.
Yeah, definitely a great day either way you go. Day 6, I just, kind of threw up some more pictures here just to get a sense of like what you might be seeing or hiking through, or what the campsites look like. There's like these incredible turquoise lakes that you look out over, and you can actually see like different lakes that are like totally different hues of blues. And then depending on the month, you might be hiking through some snow, like you see in the bottom right there, depending on the month, or just what the weather did that week.
Yeah. For real, I got married in November, and I brought my parents down, and it snowed on us in November, which December and January are the peaks of summer. And it's
right. Like, darn it.
I know. I had a nice trip planned, and my family from Texas is behind it.
Well, you just got to go with it, though.
Yeah, that's what makes it exciting. And they still talk about it today. Like, I can't believe we went and snowed in summer.
Oh, and just to say too, for the hikers, so you carry your sleeping bag and your clothes and all that stuff, but your tent and sleeping mats are waiting for you at the campsites. And you don't really need to bring much food other than like maybe snacks or whatever, because your breakfasts and dinners are supplied, and you can stop at different places. There's like refugios that you might pass for grabbing a snack or whatever along your way.
Yeah. The refugios all have little like so they have, when you guys stay there, they have like the basic meals, like the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they give you the lunch to go. But if you want, I don't know, say you're like a fanatic of Snickers bars and you want to buy 6 Snicker bars, they'll sell you like extra stuff. They have little quickie marts that they'll sell you beer and wine and extra.
Although it is quite expensive, so it's probably better to bring Snickers bars from,
Yeah, if they're light, yeah. But the wine, I think it's worth it to not carry it and just buy the bottle wine.
One thing too that some people don't know, I didn't realize until I went down there, which is really great, especially in terms of weight while you're hiking, is that you don't have to carry water. Because all of the like streams and water sources that you're traversing and crossing are just absolute like pure glacial melts, like the best water you'll probably drink. So you can just bring like a cup or an empty bottle and like fill up every hour or whatever along the way. You never go too long before you get to the next place where you can stock up on your water, and the guide that you're with will always kind of help you and point out when you can refill. So that's nice. You don't have to carry gallons of water.
My husband always just, as a guide, he would always just take a cup. He never took a bottle.
Yeah, I think that's like the, tried and true guides.
Yeah.
It's all us tourists that have like our fancy reusable bottle. So day 6, the non-hiking group, they will do what's called the Ultima Esperanza trip, which is a boat trip where you go, you know, essentially at the ends of the earth and see a couple different glaciers. The Serrano Glacier, which I think is that one in the bottom left, maybe.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah, and the Balmaceda.
Balmaceda, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, Ultima Esperanza is actually the name of the body of water right in front of Natales. And it's funny because it's Last Hope is the technical name. And it's because when they were exploring, they were trying to find a way to cross. And it was the Last Hope. I don't think that was what they were looking for either. Anyways, it takes you up into the Serrano River. So, and that river actually leads up to up to Torres del Paine. So it's a waterway link between the park and Natales. And this tour leaves Puerto Natales, leaves the coast of Natales, and takes you up to these glaciers where it's just where the body of water narrows into the river. And they'll stop at these 2 glaciers, and then I to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen because Estancia Consuelo, they had a fire there at the end of last year. I think Aaron told you that, Laura. I'm not sure. Anyways, the building where they used to have the big estancia burnt down, but I think they were trying to build it back. It was a really beautiful, like big dining hall. And I'm not sure what their plans are, especially now with the pandemic, how far. I knew they were going to rebuild it, but then I don't know if I haven't heard from them.
Okay, well, fingers crossed for them, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. But any way it goes, they're still feeding you a big lunch. Yeah, just don't know where on the route it will be.
So getting into day 7, the hikers, again, you know, these are just some shots to give you an idea. Those little like dome tents are, do you want to tell us a little about those?
Yeah. So those are so we have some, my company has these 2 dome tents in Torres del Paine. We've taken them down now for the winter, and hopefully we'll get to put them back up again at the start of next season. But one's a kitchen and one is a dining room, and we host different groups there, and we cook for them and
nice little semi-permanent, you know, thing to so day 7, non-hikers. This is where you do your sort of private, you know, full day guided tour of Torres del Paine. So in a Jeep or vehicle, whatever, you're going to go and tour the park and get to see some of the, you know, viewpoints and maybe some of the lesser known trails you can walk along for a little bit. Is there anything that you would add?
The really cool thing, people ask me all the time, like, what's better, the W or just driving through it? Well, it just depends. So if you're not a big hiker, then driving through it is really great. Or if you're in a hurry, even like you guys will be able to see more like different things. So the people that do the W get to see like up close with each glacier, and they really get to like spend time in the mountains. One of the cool things about Torres del Paine is there's no cell phone signal on the trails. And so when you're in the park, the refugios have internet now, but you have to pay for it. So you can actually like really disconnect, which is really wonderful for lots of us.
That is so rare these days. It seems like everywhere has Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And so you're in the mountains, you're lost, you're like disconnected. That's one of the really refreshing things about the W. On the outside of the trail, you still see lots of the same highlights, like you get the same visuals, but you're not camping, you're not hiking, and you get to go back to your hotel with internet and the commodities that you might want.
Yeah, it just kind of depends what is more your style or your speed. And the non-hiking group on day 7 here, you do go into and you get to stay at a hotel within the park.
Oh, so you'll stay disconnected that day.
Yeah, that night. Yeah, you'll get one night in the park. And then, and then the next day, so the hikers are essentially gonna, they're gonna hike into where you see the glacier here, Gray Glacier, or not into it, I guess, but this is the trail actually here that you'll be walking down. And so you get these incredible views of the lake of Lago Gray. And you can see all the like bits that have broken off from the glacier there. And this is the part of the trail that's really windy, right?
Yeah. Well, all of it's really windy. There's actually a place on the way to Torres that's called the Windy Pass. But this is really windy too. There was a fire there a few years back. So lots of the trees obviously haven't grown back. The wind stops the trees from growing so fast also because it's really strong wind. And also because they're the ice field, the Glacier Gray is the bottom of the southern ice cap, the ice field.
Yeah.
Ice field is a huge, if you look at Google Images and you look how big, like what arm is connected to Glacier Gray, it's huge. And so the wind comes off that glacier and hits Paine Grande, which is the name of that mountain right there, pretty forcefully.
Gotcha.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And there's some lookouts where when you climb like up on, if you just go past Glacier Gray and you go up a little bit, you'll be able to see like how far back is just ice as far as you can see. It's really pretty.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's such an amazing feeling to be in such a remote area. For sure.
It's cool.
And the non-hikers also will get to visit Glacier Gray. So they'll be coming from their hotel and onto the boat trip. So both groups will come together on the boat trip, I think even picked up from different places. But yeah, eventually you'll all be on the boat together here, which is like the Gray 3 or something like that. But it's great because it takes you right up close to the glacier, so you can see, kind of get up close and personal. You can see them, the boat's kind of heading towards the ice wall there, and you get really close and you see all the black kind of, I guess, is that like lava, dried lava there?
I don't know. It's sedimentary and igneous. It's all kinds of rocks.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
it's probably from all the volcanic activity once upon a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you get to do this really cool boat trip, which is a great way to see the glacier. Other people too that if want to go into the park or want to see the glacier, there's also kayaking trips where you can go just for a couple hours up to the glacier. You can also do like ice hiking on the glacier. And I think those are the main glacier options, right?
Ice hiking and kayaking. There's an age restriction on the ice hiking. So before you get your heart too set on that, I think it's 65, I think.
Okay. Gotcha. So also just to let you know, we've kind of gone through like our small group itinerary, which will have, dates in the 2021, 2022 season. But also we do have self-guided itineraries. So it's like a 6-day itinerary where it's just starting and ending in Puerto Natales, and then doing the W trek in between. So, with just like yourself, if you're a solo traveler, or, if you have just like one or two other people that want to do just a self-guided itinerary, we'll lay everything out, do all the accommodations, arrange, lots of different like ways that we can customize the trip for you. And you can go off and have your own private experience, and custom trips as well. So, we can completely create an itinerary that, suits you if you wanted to go, a couple extra nights in Valparaiso or Santiago, or, kind of put together your own, ideal Chile itinerary. We're happy to do that for you as well. And then there's like these cycling add-ons as well. If you're a cyclist, there's some great cycling routes that you guys have scouted out and put together, like anything from like half day to multi-day cycling options. You can see the kayakers there going up to the glacier, and that's the Rio Serrano. And there's an option where you can take a boat into Torres del Paine, and also another where you can kayak
out.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. So if you don't want to catch the bus, you can catch a boat.
Yeah. Takes 2 days though. 2 days and 3 hours.
That, yeah, should be said. So food in Chile, I know we're kind of getting close to an hour here. We'll probably go for another like 5 to 10 minutes. Just hopefully you can stick around. We will send the recording to everyone though if you have to go. But yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about the food in Chile? Always an important part of every.
Yeah. If you're a seafood lover, if you love shellfish, you will be happy pretty much anywhere in Chile. It really lots of
coastline.
yeah, there's a lot of coastline and a lot of really yummy fish. In the central region, there's lots of vegetables, like we were saying before. The picture on the right kind of looks like a tamale, but it's called an humita. It's stuffed with like mushed up corn and basil, and I don't know what other spices, but it's really yummy. The dish on the left is called pastel de choclo. It has on the top it's corn, and then in the inside it's like a meat and chicken. It always has a piece of egg and an olive, at least one olive in it. And the empanada below.
And it's in like a clay pot, right? It's always...
Yeah, it's in a clay pot, so you put it in the oven in that pot. Those well, not pot, it's a bowl, but those yeah, like you eat it out of that thing. It's really hot. You have to be careful. Those bowls are typical in Chile. They're really nice because you can just put them straight in the oven.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like lots of meat and nothing very spicy. Chileans don't like spicy food.
Yeah, lots of empanadas, which you see there. These are some other dishes. Well, that's the barbecue kind of, you know.
Barbecue is a really big deal. That's what they do on 18. They don't put like barbecue sauce in their barbecues. It's normally just salt. And it's yummy. Yeah, they just cook meat on the barbecue grill. They like chorizos, like sausages.
Sausage, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little spicy, not too spicy though. They'll eat them in a little piece of bread like a hot dog, or they'll eat them just plain with pebre, which is like a pico de gallo kind of, but not that spicy again. You can kind of see, I think that picture down there, it looks like pebre. The bean dish is really yummy. I forget what it's called, but it's a soup with beans, big beans, and they have some corn in there. It's good.
Yeah. And this has got like, I think, chicken and seafood.
Yeah, it's chicken and seafood and shrimp. It's good. The shrimp aren't local, but they still eat the shrimp.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And of course, all the wine. You can't talk about food in Chile without mentioning again the wine. So we mentioned it a little bit, but it's worth reiterating. There's all kinds of varietals grown in Chile, lots of reds, lots of whites, depending on where you are in the country. And yeah, it's just, a big part, I think, of the culture as well, enjoying a glass of wine here.
Yeah. Lee just wrote an interesting question on vegetarians. So when I moved there in 2007, I was with 2 vegetarians, and they would say I'm vegetarian, and they would get served chicken every single time. And it was really funny. It was like, no, I'm a vegetarian. I would recommend just be really specific that you don't eat any kind of meat, and you will be fine, because they have lots of really delicious vegetable dishes, like the humitas and other things like that. But meat is a really big part of their diet. But they have tons of vegetables that are
there's definitely no worries. We can arrange, for vegetarians. And,
in the touristic areas now, they've gotten very used to dealing with vegetarians, and also the people that don't eat gluten-free. And all of those diets are fine now. But if you go to a restaurant and you just tell the waiter I'm vegetarian, back in the day you would get maybe some chicken.
Yeah, it used to be like that. I remember, back in the day. But people are, getting a little more. Right, I didn't notice all these questions in the chat box lately. So let's just talk a little bit about Chile versus Argentina. From my kind of takeaway is that Torres del Paine is a little bit more like remote and kind of removed. So it has that like more, I don't know, away from it all experience. What would you say about the comparison between Patagonia and Chile or Argentina?
So I think that what I said was that I think that both places are really wonderful. Chile's a little bit more developed and stable than Argentina. but Argentina's not bad at all. And like an outdoorsman point of view, there's more mountains, there's more landscapes in Chile, because like I said, like Argentina is like just when you come over the California mountains and then there's nothing there, like just flat land with nothing, and no rain. That's what Argentina's like until you get to the coast. But there's lots of really beautiful places in Argentina, and I wouldn't necessarily as a tourist pick one country over the other. I would pick them both.
Ideally,
Yeah,
you
I
have
would
time, do
go to
both.
both.
Absolutely.
And if I had to pick, I might try to, oh, I don't know if I could pick.
Chile, of course.
Yeah, Chile, of course.
What would your family say?
My family would say, how can you go to Argentina? We're not gonna stay in Chile.
The elevation gains when walking. I don't have numbers off the top of my head. Do you?
Yeah, I sent those too. So
Sorry,
the day that you go to the towers, which is for the hikers, it's like the first day of the hiking part of the trip. The tallest part is 900 meters above sea level. Most all of the hike is down at like 300 meters above sea level. But it's like a stair stepper. You just go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. But there's no like real gain.
Yeah, and it's nice because I think also when we hike into the French Valley, we also get to leave the pack.
Yeah.
So, you're not always hiking with your full pack, which helps a lot, I think, too. Wildlife experiences. I mean, there's quite a variety in the park. You have to keep your eyes peeled. I know when I went, our guide was like this infamous puma watcher. We didn't get to see any, unfortunately, but I knew if there was going to be any around, he was going to be the one to spot one.
Yeah, Laura actually asked me, can he be the one that gives the talk? And I was like, I'm pretty sure he's out lost in the mountains looking for
communing with the pumas.
Yeah.
There's lots of other wildlife, though. There's fox and what is it, guanaco? Is that
guanacos? Yeah, they're like little, well, they're the same size as llamas. They're like llamas, but the Patagonia version. There's condors, which are the big vultures. The condor is the Chilean bird, so it's an important one too. You can see all of those just like normal, not normal, but I mean, if you keep your eyes peeled, you'll see them.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, if anyone's interested in learning any Spanish before you go to Chile, even though, you'll be fine with English, we do have a great partner that offers online Spanish classes, and we can get you a 10% discount. So if anybody's interested, I'll send that out in the follow-up email with the recording. And we're just gonna wrap things up a little bit with some general travel tips for Chile. So when to go, what to pack. Laura, do you want to just give us a couple bullet points?
Yeah. So going to Chile, again, it'll depend on what part of Chile you're going to, but to Patagonia, you should go sometime between the end of October, beginning of November, all the way through April. To pack, a very good tip is remember that it is really windy. You're going out into like tropical storm winds every day. So remember that anything you're wearing, like a baseball hat, or if you are on the hiking trip and you want to bring like a pack cover, it needs to be able to be secured very tightly to your body, because everything will fly away. The money and tipping, Chileans like Chilean pesos. So I would, you can exchange dollars and people would take dollars, but in order to spend the dollar, whoever you gave it to has to go exchange it. So like if you're giving it to the hotel, that's probably fine, because the hotel is going to have somebody that has to go exchange all the dollars that all the people are giving them to you. But if you're giving them as a tip to like a waitress or somebody, it's kind of a pain, because then they have to go exchange the money in order to spend it. Because like the grocery store won't take $1. So Chilean pesos are good. But you can easily get them out of ATMs. Like if you have your ATM card, you can use the ATM and debit Chilean pesos. Tipping, you don't tip taxi drivers, but you do tip grocery baggers. You do tip waiters and waitresses, but most of Chile, the wages of people are good enough to not need a tip to survive. So a tip is actually a tip. 10% is generally like what people do if they're happy with the service. And safety, I noticed on the US site for travel that they're still talking about, there were some protests last October, some civil unrest in Santiago because of the inequality of the minimum wage and the services that are available to low income people versus the really wealthy. That I want to like make note that the protests weren't trying to hurt travelers. They were trying to get attention to get more equality in the country. So and since October, there haven't been any. They were supposedly going to have some Oregon march, but they didn't because of the pandemic. So I would say that the country is very safe in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are going to try and experience some other parts of Chile, I just wanted to kind of give an honorable mention to these other places that we didn't go into in depth. Easter Island, of course, is a huge, amazing destination there. The Atacama Desert, Lake District, definitely, you know, worth checking out or looking up some of these other places if you have extra time in Chile. Hopefully we've gotten through most of your questions kind of as we've been going in the chat box. I see there's another one about penguins. Laura, did you want to speak to the penguins?
I was just writing it. There's penguins there in Punta Arenas. There's some penguins on an island out in the middle of the Straits of Magellan. There's some penguins. And then also up near Puerto Montt in the island of Chiloé, there's some penguins.
Anywhere around Ultima Esperanza, or I'm trying
not near Puerto Natales. You have to go to Punta Arenas to see the penguins.
Yeah.
I think one time somebody saw a stray one, but it was like very
a lost penguin.
Yeah, a lost penguin.
A rainy season. Up in the central area, is there like
no, not really. In Santiago, in Valpo and Viña, there's not like one rainy time of year, but the summer. So in Puerto Natales, like the seasons are all kind of mixed together. You really see all 4 seasons in one day, no matter what time of year it is. It just gets colder in the winter, but it can be cold in the summer too. Anyways, in the central region, the seasons are more marked, so you can see that it's winter because it's cold and it's like gray and gloomy, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily more rainy.
Yeah, it's not like, I guess, like tropical areas that have like a dry season and a rainy season. It's more like a 4 season, you know, like spring, summer, fall, winter kind of.
Yeah, and in Santiago and Valpo and Viña, there's not really snow. It's more the other direction up towards the mountains that you'll see the snow. You don't see it down by the coast.
Yeah. I mean, the hottest months obviously then would be like what, January, February. So which, you know, if you're not like into traveling in like really hot weather, you might want to avoid those up in the northern areas.
And two, February is the big time for travel in South America. That's when most of the like Brazil travels a lot in February, Argentina and Chile, all the kids are out of school. That's when most of the adults take their vacations. It's like our August in the States. So if you could avoid February, I probably would.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very, very good point. Okay, so feel free to, you know, send any further questions. We can always, you know, let you know if you have any specific questions or, you know, something related to a specific trip that you have in mind. For anyone who's stuck around or watching the recording later, we are offering a special. So for our 2021 dates or trips, if you want to do self-guided or small group, you can get you booked onto one of those for $100 off. And with all of our trips right now too, with the uncertainty, we do like, you know, free postponements. Like if we book a trip for November 2021 and it turns out that that's still not viable, we just move all your payments to another date set, so you're not going to lose any money or anything like that. We'll make that call a couple months before the trip. Yeah, thanks for coming. You can see more about our Chile trip there at traversejourneys.com, and you can check out the full itinerary and the self-guided options as well. And if you want to keep, following along with Traverse Journeys, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have meetup groups in many different cities, and our events are always on Eventbrite. We don't have any events planned at the moment because we're coming up to the holiday season, so we'll probably give it a break, and then starting sometime in January, we'll start to do, usually like 2 events per month. We do destination specific events and then travel themed events where we might talk about sustainable travel, or talk about solo travel, or traveling as a woman, or some sort of general travel themed topic like that. So yeah, thanks again for coming. We're excited to be able to share all about Chile with you. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
And here's crossing fingers for a more brighter travel reality in 2021. And
Yeah.
hopefully we can all make it down to Chile and Patagonia as soon as possible. Thank you again. And
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for sticking around, everyone.
Mhm.
Have a great rest of your Saturday and your weekend, and hope to see you at an event again in the future, or maybe on a trip sometime.
Thank you.